Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 86. Today we're talking the impact trains can have on property development. You'll be surprised it's not all doom and gloom. So it'll be an interesting episode. You're going to love it. Jump on into episode 86. Hello, welcome to episode 86. Bob Anderson and Hilary Saxton today talking trains and the impact they have on your property development. But before we kick off, as usual, giving away a copy of the book Secrets of Millionaires Exposed, and as you know, go straight to page 121. You'd be surprised how many people email me and say, oh, thanks for the book, or I'd love a copy of the book, and I'm going straight to page 121. That's Bob's chapter about property development, but there are lots of different property strategies in here. So if you would like a copy of this, subscribe to us on YouTube, make a favourable comment on Apple or Spotify, and you go in the draw to win that. Speaking of winning that, this week's winner is Johnson Kaloki. Johnson subscribed to us on YouTube and became just out of the draw this week's winner. So that's in the post to you this afternoon. If we get your address on time, I'll get Crystal to reach out to you and get that address. But now, welcome, Bob, to the studio.
Thank you.
You're looking good this morning, Bob.
Oh, looking good. You're looking beautiful. If I'm good, you've got to be beautiful.
Oh, gee, thanks. Take what you can get. Hey, so the impact of that trains have on property development. This is going to be a great episode. We've already had a little pre-chat.
You ever been on a train?
Yes, Bob, I've been on a train. Not that often.
I know public transport's not your forte.
No. Oh, I'm so not good. I'm very good at some things, and some things I'm rubbish at, and one of them is timetables and trains and things. Yeah. I went to school with 9 people, and on my first day, it did grow up to about 15.
Was that in your class or the whole school?
No, the whole school. So we didn't have things like trains, and where I lived, it was very rural, and just a small town. We just didn't have them. And so the last time, I just didn't grow up with it. The last time I went on a train, I was catching up with some friends in the Gold Coast. You were coming down the next day.
I remember that.
So you told me where to go.
Yep.
You dropped me at the station, told me exactly how to get on. And then
how to get off.
And where to get off. And I started talking to this lady on the train, and she told me to get off earlier than that. No, that's the wrong one. So I did, and I ended up lost in the middle of nowhere. So
Did you learn anything from that?
Yeah, don't use trains.
Oh, what about listen to Bob next time?
Yeah, it cost me $25 in an Uber after that.
Oh, that's what happens.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know, that's funny. Is that the last time you've ever been on a train? Yep.
Oh, apart from the Mary Rattler, which is that old steam train that you can do a journey on
that was
up
fun.
at Gympie.
Yeah.
That's really worth doing if you live in Queensland.
The Mary Rattler. That was a good morning.
Yeah, it's an old steam train that they just take you out.
Yeah. It leaves Gympie, heads out.
Yeah, but that's it. I'm not really a train. What about you, Bob? What's been your experience with trains?
In property development or just growing up?
I
lived near. Well, the house I grew up in was pretty close to a railway station. And back in those days, we didn't have electric trains. We had the chut-chuts, they were cold.
Hang on, did you say chut-chut?
Chut-chut. Toot-toot, those sorts of trains,
Nice.
And I think I was quite young when they converted over to diesel and then eventually electric. But, yeah, I had a fascination as a little kid. My mum used to walk me down to the railway station. I used to watch the trains. Pretty weird, eh?
Oh, that's cool. But
that's before.
During your career and everything you've ever done, did you catch trains? Was that a going to a destination or a workplace thing that you did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, look, when I worked for one of the big development companies in the city, I used to often catch a train. Parking being hard to get and expensive. But, trains, I haven't been on a train for a while, for about 5 years, but, they're a great form of transport.
They are.
And as you sort of mentioned earlier, in terms of property development, they can be a good thing or a bad thing, it depends a bit on proximity to trains and all that sort of thing. But
Well, let's unpack it, because we wrote down a few things that we thought would be useful for people to understand about trains and how they do affect property development.
Yeah, it's not just black and white, is it?
No, there's a lot goes into this one. So we'll start with the obvious, which is pollution. And
not so much a problem anymore.
No.
Was in the old days, even in the diesel days. But electric trains, pretty good pollution-wise. But some people may develop on a track that at least has some diesel pollution. If there's like not so much passenger trains, but it's not really an issue anymore. Not like it used to be.
So is that something you would factor in, like
No,
the
not
diesel
these
thing?
days.
You'd just ignore that.
Well,
really?
when you talk about pollution, I was thinking of atmospheric pollution, but noise pollution.
Yeah, that was my next topic to bring up. Noise pollution, which probably would be the thing people consider the most, correct?
Yeah. And, of course, not as bad as it was in the old days with electric trains, but, there's a lot of variables. You might be looking at a development on a railway track, let's say, and as soon as you see the track, you might run the other way. Don't necessarily run the other way. Have a look at it, because let's say it's not at a railway station, it's on a track. Let's say it's between two railway stations. So the train is moving along at a fair pace. Most of the noise will be coming from the wheels on the track, but not lots of it.
And if it's just going past, that's not too much of an issue.
Not too much of an issue when they go through at speed. But then it does depend on the position of the railway track in respect to the site. Because it could be, in some cases, let's go back to the train, shall we?
Yeah.
The train could be going by above the lot, not often, but often level with the lot. But then if it's in a cutting, it could be way down below the lot.
That's more of an issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the sound travelling upwards.
And there is the visual thing of trains as well. I mean, it's a form of visual pollution if you see them, but I mean, I've looked at some.
Not if you're a toddler.
No,
Little boys love trains, don't they?
They do.
But,
But
and probably girls, yeah.
yeah, if you're, let's say you're on a site and there's a cutting, and it could be 5 or 6 metres down, you don't even see the train, and the embankment acts as a sound buffer, an acoustic buffer.
I thought there would be more impact because
Well, it goes up.
Lift up.
It goes up, but it goes up above the track. It doesn't sort of go up and then
out.
do a sudden 90-degree angle and shoot back at your townhouses. So, when you look at a maybe it's just a Google map, not so much. Well, it could be Google. It's something two-dimensional. You can see the railway track, but where is it in proximity to the site? And you may have to look at a contour plan or something, or even visit the site and see where it is, because it might be very unobtrusive. You almost can't hear it, and you can't see it, and you almost can't hear it.
Is it more impacted, Bob, by, you just mentioned, if it's going past, it's on a track between two stations. There's got to be places that have a lot of trains going through and some that only have less. How would you factor that in? Or would you factor that in? Would you look at find out whether it was a busy line or a less busy line? Is that something you would consider?
Well, it would be, I guess, particularly if it is putting out, some form of, if you like, pollution, noise pollution particularly.
Yeah.
And to some extent visual. I mean, the more times it goes past the lot, the more times you see it, the more times you hear it. It does have you could take it into account. The thing I always say, though, is, look, people live on the railway line. Like, you're looking at a site, let's say it was an old house. You can demolish it, you can put up 4 townhouses. That's something pretty typical. Well, somebody lived in that house maybe for, different people over 60 or 80, 100 years. People live next door on both sides. People live right along the railway track.
It's not like it hasn't been done before.
No. It's not like living next door to a rubbish dump or something. It's and you do get used to it. You ask anybody who's lived on, say, a railway track or perhaps a busy road, and they always say, look, after a while, you just sort of zone out. It almost becomes noise cancelling, in the background, like you've got some inbuilt Dolby system that eventually just sort of cancels it out.
Your personal Dolby kicks in. I remember when Georgia and Jono did their first reno. Remember they bought that place that was the train track was over the road, and initially, if we were talking to them, they would let us know, oh, there's the trains going past, but that did stop. That did, so their Dolby system kicked in.
Yeah, and I guess you can differentiate between the people that live on the track. Now, they could be owner-occupiers or they could be investors.
Well, I think we should unpack that one, Bob, because if you're looking for an investment and you're renting a property, often they might want to live near a train station.
Well, definitely a train station.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've just talked about, I guess, a site that's, let's say, between stations, where the train's moving along at a sort of a set speed. It's not accelerating, not decelerating.
Was that the story you were telling? Remember the story you were telling me yesterday when we went for breakfast about you were selling that site? Was that at a train station? Was that on a?
No, it
on
was
a
on
line?
a track. Yeah, look, that was.
We'll go back to this, but this is quite funny.
Yeah, that was actually at the back of the Sunshine Coast. This is quite a few years ago now. I bought a block of land just to do a spec house because I could see that this particular area is sort of going ahead, and I bought a block. I don't normally recommend you buy a block of land and build a spec house, but in this case, I did. And it was a fairly large lot. I think it was like about 1,100 square metres, and it backed down onto the railway track. But there was a freight train that went through. I can't remember. It only went through once a day, or maybe even once every couple of days. But when this freight train went through, because it was diesel, because of the huge load that it was pulling, and they had about probably 3 diesel engines pulling this thing, and it was quite noisy, as diesels are when they're working hard. And it must have been a kilometre long, this thing, right? So it went through, as I said, every day, every couple of days, at a particular time. I wasn't really too aware of that. And I had the market. I was selling it. I had it on the market. I was selling it myself. And a fellow contacted me from Canberra, and he was up looking for a house, in that general area for some reason. I think his kids lived not far away. Anyway, I took him through the house. He really liked it. He liked everything about it. And
you're on the handshake.
Yeah, on the handshake. He says, "Look, I'll go back to my lawyer." I said, "Look, that's fine. I'll get a contract to him." And we'll do the deal. And it was a done deal, like just on the handshake.
I just got to remember Bob used to be in real estate. Like, that's how he kicked off. So this wasn't,
Yeah, so I know how to sell.
Yeah.
And he was just walking to his car, out the front. And next thing, clangity, clangity, and this thing went through, this...
Clangity, clangity,
Oh,
clang.
you can imagine, like 3 big diesel engines pulling this thing that... And he just sort of looked at it. And I looked at it, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. And we couldn't talk. It was so noisy. But he, instead of just jumping in his car and taking off, we waited, and it felt like an hour. It was probably a minute and a half, I don't know, whatever it was. But the pain that was going through me, because I just saw that sale just go up, in smoke sort of thing. And finally when it went through, he said, I've changed my mind.
That was it. Game over.
Hot in his car.
See you later.
That minute or minute and a half that train went through was absolute agony.
Oh.
I couldn't even talk.
That's hilarious.
But that's trains.
That is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I derailed us there. So let's excuse the pun, everybody. Let's get back on track, Bob. Oh, look at me go.
I haven't even practiced these.
No. But we were talking about whether you were on a train line or whether you are living near a station.
Very close to a station, because that is a lot noisier. I mean, you've got people coming, people going, people parking, and you've got trains coming into the station sort of decelerating and slowing down, and sometimes you get that high-pitched squeal, when they're... It must be the wheels on the metal tracks, I imagine. And then when they're taking off, you got that build-up crescendo of the... the wheels picking up speed and going over the joints in the track and that, and so more noisy.
But there's a but there, because it's actually a selling point for rentals, for maybe rooming houses, student accommodation, or just people that want to live near a station that can quickly get into wherever they, get to where their job is, or get to close to amenities.
It's back to how close is close.
Yes.
I mean, 400 metres would be great. 400 metres to a railway station. I mean, that's...
Selling point.
Yeah. I don't know, what's about 4 or 5 minute walk, amble, isn't it? 400 metres, I'm not sure, but, to a railway station, but you're away from the noise.
Yeah.
Because remembering, and we haven't mentioned it yet, but whenever you're developing on, let's say, on a railway line or very close to one, the council would insist on getting an acoustic report. And so...
What does an acoustic report generally cost, Bob? I know you had to get a ridiculous one. We don't even talk about what that cost, but what was your... Oh,
look, in round figures, it's probably like $2,000, give or take a bit. It can vary quite a bit. Just different engineers charge different amounts, but, you should get one for around that, 2.5 tops.
And do they just stand outside with a microphone, basically, a sound meter? And
well, they set up a machine on the site, and they leave it there for a week, typically. So obviously they have to have a few machines. They make a lot of money doing one a week. But often they leave these, and they record the sound on different days at different times, because it does vary.
Yes.
Like, the trains might stop running at 11 p.m. and don't start up till 5. Well, no train noise. They might be busier on certain days. They might be busier on weekdays because of workers and less on weekends.
As well?
No, not really. Oh, well.
Minimally.
Yeah. And so they run the recordings through software, acoustic software programs, and they come up with peak noises and peak times, and then based on that, they can make recommendations in terms of what has to be done to ameliorate the noise. And it could be something as simple as an acoustic fence. It could be thicker glass in the windows on that particular side. It could be extra sheet of plasterboard in certain areas. It could be extra insulation. There's a range of methods that they can use to ameliorate that. And in some cases, it's got to do with even the air conditioning and closing windows and everything. So they come up with a report, and you have to then incorporate those instructions or those ideas, if you like, into your design. And so the architect
they're not that
would incorporate
costly,
those.
really, are they?
Well, generally not.
No.
Speaking of developing on a railway station, I did actually do some work on a development for another person who bought the site in another state, sight unseen.
They were in another state.
Weren't even sure what they were buying. When they asked me to have a look at it, the next day I realised
they'd already bought it.
They'd signed an unconditional contract, 10% deposit, and there was a 4-lane road out the front, and there was a railway station at the back, not a railway line, railway station. And the acoustics just on that back fence, we had to build a 6 metre high.
Whoa, 6 metres.
Yeah, acoustic fence. And that, when you're standing next to a 6 metre fence,
It'd feel like prison.
it's pretty high.
Yeah.
It's a lot of two-storey houses. The gutter is about 5, so you imagine going right up again another metre, and you walk out. Say you walk out the back. Say that was just where your courtyard is. You walk out and you're looking up at Mount Everest. This huge big wall, and then also down the side, and then even in the building itself there's acoustic measures. So, but the flip side of it is, you don't have far to go to the railway station.
You don't.
You couldn't go through the back fence, but it's just around the corner.
And when you think about, like we've alluded to, the fact that it's often a rental area, but there are many expensive areas built on and near railway stations, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, some of our most expensive suburbs have railway lines going through and railway stations. And those areas can have a reasonably high percentage of owner-occupiers, and they've paid a lot of money for their houses. And some of them live on the railway line, but for them, the price of doing that is, from a noise or visual point of view, is a lot less than their desire to live in that suburb, and the location, the proximity to beach, I don't know, whatever it is, it outweighs that.
And you just alluded to the windows, the extras that can minimise that noise, and I suppose it's more along the lines of a aesthetically pleasing, as long as there's not a 6 metre fence out your back.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of acoustic fences are only like 2 metres high. Yeah. And when you put a bit of a raised garden and some shrubs in front of it, it quickly sort of blends into the background. So it's not that big an issue. But 6 metres, that you can't get around a 6 metre fence. No.
Bob, have you done many developments yourself on where you've had to very much consider railway lines?
Not a lot.
Or stations?
Well...
let's go railway lines first, because railway lines are different to stations.
Yeah, they are. And they vary, as we talked about, that the height, of the railway line,
and the amount of time
to the
that
site.
goes through.
And, look, if I can avoid them, I would. Yep. But if I found a site in a cracker area where there's a shortage of stock, and there's obviously plenty of precedents of successful developments along that line, and the price was okay, I'd do it. Yep. All those boxes would have to be ticked. But building near railway stations, close by, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one development I did, which was some apartments. And there was only 3 railway stations out of the city, and the site was a cracker. We did a basement plus 4-level apartment block there, purely for rental. In fact, that's what we did. No, that syndicate I put together, we kept them for rental, didn't sell them. And it was 150 metres from the railway station, but the railway station was through, like, basically in the bottom of the culvert. You couldn't even see it. And so when you walked up to the railway station, you walked down a couple of sets of stairs to the railway station. So it had a natural buffer, and there was probably about five buildings, between our building and the railway station anyway, and trees and things. And to me, that was great. You hardly heard anything at all. And 3 stations from the city. It was also about 250 metres from the largest private hospital in the state, with obviously a huge amount of employees there, and a railway line. And in the other direction, at about probably 200 metres, was some small strip shops supplying all the basics in a few restaurants. So to me, that was perfect.
Yeah.
But that, close, but not on top of the railway station. And I've done plenty of them in close proximity. In fact, Terry Ryder, I don't know if people know Terry Ryder. Look, I don't even know if Terry's around doing stuff these days, but Terry he was a journalist, he was a property journalist for many years, but then he started a thing called hotspotting, and it might still be out there, I don't know. It's not a plug for Terry by any means, but he was predicting, future growth areas for rental and, capital growth, that sort of thing. And he did some studies a couple of years ago now, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And what he found, he looked at most of the capital cities, 3 or 4 of them at least, the big ones in Australia, and he had a look at the suburbs that had the highest growth for the year. And it was something like, on average, 8 out of 10 of those suburbs had a railway station.
Wow, so that's a pro, isn't it? Definitely.
And it's all back to transport.
Yeah.
The cost of
fuel. The
cost of transport, like when you work in the city, like driving your own car in and that's just part of your salary package. You can, I've gone to meetings in the city for an hour and a half and paid $70 parking, when I've been stuck and had to go to some parking stations. So it's all around transport nodes, and railway stations are a great one. Bus interchange is almost as good, but certainly railway stations, yeah.
So I think often people think when we're looking at developing that, it's a negative, but it's not
Doesn't
really.
have to
There
be
are
a
so
negative.
many things that impact it, meaning, how much sound pollution, whether it's below or above, how busy it is, how often trains are going through. Is it just so much that you need to consider before you go, no.
Yeah. One of the things that's hard, though, that I've found when I've looked at sites, either for ourselves or sometimes for our mentoring students, when we're doing feasibilities, is actually trying to get a good handle on the sale price of the end product.
Yes.
So I go back to our little hypothetical we talked about before, old house, we're going to knock it down, build 4 townhouses on the site. Let's say it's adjoining a railway line. Well, there would be a discount on the sale price. It wouldn't be the same sale price as an identical project 400 metres away necessarily.
Yeah.
Unless that 400 metres is on a 4-lane road. So what is the discount? This is the thing. We know the costs are the same. You throw in an acoustic report and everything, what it costs to build, other than there would be a little bit more in the acoustic remedies, but, it might only be $5,000 and it might only be a 2-metre fence. Like, just say it's the railway line's a bit low, you might have a 2-metre fence, a few treatments particularly to the townhouses that face the line, not so much the other ones. It might be an extra 20 or 30,000 in the whole project, let's say, but how much do you discount the sale price? Because that's the biggest number in a feasibility. And so let's say 400 metres away, that identical townhouse sells for 800,000. What will these ones sell for? Well, obviously you've got to try and find comparable sales. So if there was a development done 2 blocks up and they just sold them in the last few months, well, and you're going to build that product, that would be great. But it often doesn't happen that way. And probably because there's less developments on a railway track than there is off a railway track, pretty obviously. And so what do you use as a comparable? And we've sort of had that trouble occasionally where there hasn't been much in the line of recent sales on that line. And what do you do? Like, what's the discount? I mean, you could go to an adjoining suburb and try and, like, it's more like what's the discount rather than the dollar value. Because let's say you couldn't find it, you went another suburb along the railway track and there were some recent sales there. Well, you could compare those sales to the average sales in that area and you could say, oh, look, it's, it's 8% or something, whatever it is, I've got no idea.
Yeah.
And then that could give you a bit of a lead. But it can be a bit of an issue. And, if you haven't got direct comparables, I mean, you can ask real estate agents, but then what are they going to lean on? They've got to lean on comparables as well. That has been a bit of an issue sometimes, is trying to work out what that is.
Sale. You brought something up, and I think I'd like to know the answer to this. Which would you steer away from first, a busy road or a train station? Which would be, to you, more negative?
Station.
A train station.
Maybe a train station.
Okay, so then now which would you veer away from?
Depends what you mean by busy road too, like traffic counts.
Would you prefer to develop, would you prefer to develop a 4-townhouse project on a busy road, or would you prefer to develop closer to a train station, which would be more favourable for you?
Closer to a railway station, but not on the busy road would be more favourable.
If you had to, which would you'd prefer the railway station?
But not on top of it, obviously, near it.
No, not on top of it. I was just wondering.
Sometimes you see a site and you tend to discount it. Like, you might have a look, a site might come up and you have a look, oh, holy smokes. It's like...
It's everything I'm looking for.
150 metres from 100 metres from the railway station. Oh, and it's on 4-lane road. And
it's not what you're looking for.
No, but you think, well, hang on. Okay, I'm not going to develop something for owner-occupiers there necessarily, but what else might work there? Because one popped up not long ago. It was on quite a busy road, a four-lane road. There was a shopping centre almost over the other side of the road, a big shopping centre. Within the shopping centre itself, virtually, was a bus interchange, which was directly opposite this.
Yep.
And there was a service station on sort of on the other corner, like the perfect don't do. So let's just think about something like a rooming house, or something similar, perhaps a modern boarding house, or something there for rental, short term maybe. What has it got going for it? Yeah, okay. There's a 4-lane road, but there's also bus stops directly over the road. So there's a little bit of noise, but you can account for that in the design. But straight across the road is a bus interchange that takes you in every direction. There's a shopping centre with virtually every shop known to man, really. Like there's 2 shopping centres joined together, and then next to that is one of those, there's a Bunnings, but there's also a, what do you call them, a home centre? Like there's shops galore there. There's a railway station within, I'd say, about a 5 or 6 minute walk. And so you've got transport, bus interchange, trains, big shopping centre, and not that far out of the city even.
I'm hearing, Bob, that it depends on the product. Yeah, the product right there would be...
And maybe look at that. Maybe it still doesn't work, but just don't discount it, because often what doesn't work for one might be a benefit
for something else.
You know?
Oh my gosh, I just said absolutely. Oh.
Sorry, Aaron.
Sorry, everybody. Here goes $1 in the jar.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think we've opened up a thought process, at least, for people considering developing near, or maybe you've got an opportunity near a railway station, or maybe you'll start looking a little bit more in those areas depending on the product that you're looking at developing.
It's not just black and white. I'll say that again. Not just black and white, is it?
All black and white. It's not black and white. All black and white. No.
There's a bit to it.
There's a lot more thinking can go around it. Yeah. Okay, Bob. Well, thank you so much for your, as usual, amazing expertise. And
you're most welcome.
And we have come to an end of episode 86. This podcast is brought to you by Property Mastermind. leading property development educators in Australia. If you're interested in finding out more, feel free to email me, hillary@propertymastermind.com.au. One L in Hillary, by the way. All right. Well, we shall see you soon, and good luck with your developing ventures. Bye for now.
Bye now.